Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm JR. That's Zach. We are presented and brought to you by FanDuel. A lot to get to in this show. Please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us. If you're on podcast, 5-star rating and review helps us out a ton. We are going to give our instant reactions to the college football playoffs. We're also going to talk about Clark Lee, some of his comments, and Ohio State, Michigan. There is some saboteur going on, possibly. We're going to talk about the helmet comms and everything going on there. And then, of course, in the second segment, we'll get into some more news items and bowl projections, everything there. But I do need to ask you, Zach, okay? I do need to ask you. You're in Pennsylvania, okay? Have the crumble cookie stores just been burning in Pennsylvania? Like, are the fire departments even responding at this point? What's going on? Give us the vibe of Pennsylvania right now.
So you need to understand something, JR. I live like 10 minutes away from an Amish community. I'm not near a crumble cookie.
The Amish are your crumble cookie.
Yeah. Yes, the horse and buggies are leaving not crumble cookies, but they're leaving things on the streets. We don't have them. So I have no idea.
Oh my. Well, maybe that was strategic. They knew this was going to happen at some point, Sataki and everything else, and they said the Amish are there. We're just going to stay out of Pennsylvania. I do need to look that up. How many crumble cookies are in Pennsylvania?
This is such a great comment by Philip. PSU needs an Amish coach.
Can you imagine the beard on him?
Oh my gosh,
like we get the Ryan Day comments about how he, dyed his beard and everything. What kind of comments would he get on the Amish coach for them?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Philip, that's
great comment.
That was Phillip. A+ comment, man.
All right, let's see who else we got here with us. Max says, what is Penn State doing right now? Everyone else has already hired their coach. Literally everyone else. Well, not too late, right? They're like in Memphis, like the G5 ones are the only ones that haven't because they're the ones that got their coaches taken from them. Chris and I are going to do our Penn State head coaching episode on Thursday morning, so definitely check that out. I mean, I have some thoughts, but I want to get mostly Chris's thoughts. I mean, Zach, do you have any thoughts on Penn State and what they're going through right now with the head coaching stuff?
I got a text from my good friend, also named Chris, asking if I would coach Penn State, and I said no.
Wow, you've gone from consideration for the Kent State job to consideration for the Penn State job now.
To be fair, I never considered Kent State as a coach. Maybe as their number one fan, but not as their coach.
Fair. You might get a call from Ohio. Sounds like Ohio's going through some deep stuff right now. So,
in all seriousness, I feel bad for Penn State, but I think part of the issue is that there's just not alignment in their administration. Like, it seems like Pat Kraft, like as more comes out, Pat Kraft acted prematurely and did not get alignment throughout the entire athletic department and with donors and NIL and agents and all the stuff that you need to kind of square away. And that is causing a lot of chaos.
A lot of chaos indeed. So we'll see what happens. I'm trying to reserve my thoughts and opinions until they actually hire the coach. I don't want to, get too much into it. And then obviously, like I said, we'll get Chris's thoughts and everything on Thursday morning. So Kyle says Penn State looking to replace Purdue in the Big Ten cellar.
No,
I don't think it's that bad yet. But we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what happens when they hire their next coach. Somebody on Twitter was asking me if they should be considered Nebraska yet, and I said, well, just don't hire Scott Frost. We'll if they hire Scott Frost, then we'll talk about it.
Somebody should have told that to UCF.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know, how did UCF do this year?
They are not going bowling.
Yeah, that's what happens when you hire Scott Frost. So, let's see. I'm getting comments, but they're not showing up at the bottom. That's weird. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get into the show. I have a comment on Penn State later on in the show we'll talk about, but Yeah, let's go ahead and get into the show. Zach, let's talk about where'd Zach go? There he is. Let's talk about the college football playoff rankings, the top 25, just released earlier tonight. I'll read it off for you, and then we'll go to Zach for his first reaction, as Zach does have many reactions to get to here. Okay, Ohio State number 1, followed by Indiana, Georgia 3, Texas Tech, Oregon number 5. That seems strategic once we look at the bracket. Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama, Notre Dame at 10. They flip Alabama and Notre Dame. Alabama is now number 9. That Auburn close win over Auburn was just so darn impressive. Way more impressive than Notre Dame just absolutely stomping Stanford. So much better. And then BYU stays at number 11. They basically have no chance unless they win their conference championship game, followed by Miami at 12. Their win over Pitt did nothing for them. They stay right there. Texas, and then Vanderbilt, Utah, and USC at number 16. Virginia, Arizona, Michigan moves down 2 spots to number 19. Tulane, Utah, Georgia Tech, Iowa finds themselves in the college football playoff rankings, number 23, and then North Texas and James Madison. Zach, your first reaction.
So let me start with the positives. Tennessee and Missouri is not in this stupid thing, which is good, and Iowa is.
We should be happy about that. Yes.
Yeah, that is good, very good. The rest of it stinks. I think it's taken me a while to realize how stupid this poll is. Because I think when I first saw it and as it's been going, I'm like, I think I'm okay with this. I think I'm okay with this. Listen, I'm going to be a little controversial. And you might yell at me.
I do enjoy yelling, yes.
So I actually don't have a problem with Alabama over Notre Dame. My problem is that it took this past Saturday to do it. The CFP chairman comes out and says Alabama on the back of a good win where they dominated the first half against Auburn. Timeout. Did he watch the game? Did he watch that monstrosity of a game?
No, he did not watch the game, Zach.
Auburn tried to get, literally just hand them the ball 12 times in that game. And they finally did turn it over. And yes, Alabama built a 17-0 lead because Auburn was incompetent.
But at halftime, it was 17-6. It wasn't even 17-0 at halftime.
Right. Because Alabama did not play well in this game. Not because Auburn is great, but because Alabama was mid all game. It's just Auburn was more mid. It was an atrocious football game. And so if you're going to tell me that up until this point that you thought Notre Dame was better, and then that performance is what has you flip Alabama over Notre Dame, then you are out of your mind and you are disqualified from talking anything about football. I don't know who in their right mind watched that game and thought Alabama's a playoff team.
Well, you know why they did it though, right? It didn't have anything to do with the game. They're just looking for a scapegoat reason for why to put Alabama over Notre Dame. And we can talk about Notre Dame here in a second because the whole 3-pod thing, they should be behind a certain team. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. But
agreed.
Alabama the only reason they are putting Alabama above Notre Dame, it was nothing impressive that Alabama did because Alabama did hardly anything impressive in that game. Ty Simpson was awful. I know he was able to run the ball a little bit, out there, but he's rightfully out of the Heisman considerations. We'll talk about another Heisman candidate here in a little bit later on. Candidate. It's so stupid that he's the leader in the Heisman stuff right now. But anyway, the only reason they did this was because it's protection for if BYU wins their conference championship game, they can put BYU in at number 10. They can have Texas Tech move down, I guess a spot or two. I don't even know if Texas Tech would move down because they're not supposed to. But then that way you wouldn't have to move Alabama out because they don't want one less SEC team in there. They want Georgia, they want Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Alabama. They want all 5 of those SEC teams in there because this is not college football playoff committee. This is the ESPN Invitational. It's the same reason I tell people every single year we need auto bids. We don't need this kind of crap. And I get it. Nobody likes the G5 stuff. That's fine. But if you want to keep seeing the SEC just get every benefit of the doubt and see weird rankings because it helps the SEC guys, sure, we'll keep going with the committee, but that's all it is. It's a committee that just does whatever ESPN wants because it's not a college football playoff committee. It's an ESPN Invitational.
And here's what I'll say, because I don't disagree with that point. I think what's frustrating about this whole thing, thank you, Steely Matt, for reposting the stream.
Yes, thank you, Steely.
It's like they're not fooling anybody. So when they come on and say, well, Alabama played a very good Auburn team who is 5-7 and is not very good,
who has fired their head coach.
Yeah, like I already don't have trust in the committee, but your credibility continues to tank as a football mind. Let alone the Miami over Notre Dame stuff, right? Like, or Notre Dame being over Miami. And like, honestly, again, I haven't, if you compared all resumes, because out of anybody, Alabama has had the most difficult schedule out of all and has the best win, right? They beat Georgia. Like, they beat Georgia. I think that is you could make an argument Indiana has had the best win at Oregon. Like, I'm not going to argue
Alabama
that.
was at Georgia. I still think Oregon's a better team than Georgia, but by the rankings wise, sure, they have the best win.
Yeah. But so I don't mind that Alabama's 9. I mind how they went about it. And to me, you lose all credibility when you go about it this way. And I'm starting to trend towards what you're saying with auto bids, because again, if, for instance, Miami over Notre Dame isn't going to be honored head to head when we are saying we want every game to matter, well, guess what? That game didn't matter. If you are putting a 10-2 Miami underneath a 10-2 Notre Dame, and Miami has the head-to-head. In every other sport, you line it up, the 10-2 team that beats the other 10-2 team is in over them. This is a travesty. Like, the top 12 is a travesty.
Yeah, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. And this is what the College Football Playoff Committee was supposed to bring. They were supposed to bring, the insight, the ability to say, okay, head to head, these two teams are close. They have the same amount of whatever it might be. And you can't even say, I mean, like the ACC right now is going ballistic because I don't know if you saw the ACC schedule for their for their TV today, but it was literally, they had the Miami Notre Dame game from this year on replay the entire day. That was all the ACC network was out there playing, because it is a complete travesty that Miami is not over Notre Dame. And I get it. If people want to say, like, well, Notre Dame's the better team, they're better now. Okay, if you want to do that, like, power ratings wise, they probably are, like betting odds and stuff like that. They probably are. But it's exactly what you said. These games don't matter. It does not matter playing these out of conference games. And it's why you're going to see more and more of these teams take the Indiana approach. Again, I don't love the Indiana approach, but I think Indiana is smart doing it, because right now that's what matters most, is getting the wins and not having the losses, as evidence of Miami, Notre Dame, as evidence of Alabama losing to Florida State. Like, yes, they have the best win, but they still have an absolutely awful loss to Florida State up there as well. So, I mean, at least they have Oklahoma over Alabama, I guess, but because you power ratings wise and stuff, like, or like betting odds wise and stuff, I don't think that Oklahoma would be favored over Alabama, but it's all so stupid. Do you have anything else on that before I move on to the next one?
I'll just say, two other things very quickly. One, the ACC is not, they're not innocent in this either. Like they kind of screwed themselves. You could have had a provision where Duke's game against NC State counts and put Miami in the ACC championship game, and you wouldn't be in this mess. Like the way that they have done their conference and their conference tiebreakers was stupid, flat out. The other thing, and I'm just going to this is just to get on Texas. Like Texas is 13th. They're not making the playoff. They shouldn't make the playoff. And for everybody saying, but that's going to discourage non-conference scheduling, yada, yada. They shouldn't have played Ohio State. Here's the thing. If Texas beat Ohio State, they would have been shielded from the bad loss that they had against Florida. So for everybody saying it's not a benefit to schedule these hard out-of-conference games, it absolutely is. You know who would be the top 2-loss team if Texas didn't lose to Florida? It'd be Texas. They'd be over Oklahoma by virtue of a 17-point win over Oklahoma. I think, we don't know with this committee, but I think they would be 8th. But because Texas decided to lose to a terrible team, that is why they are being punished, people. That like the benefit, like the risk of playing in Ohio State out of conference, sure, you might lose, but that's like they're completely taking it out of context, and they're saying, well, we should have just scheduled an easy win. Do you realize if you win that game, how guarded and protected you are? But you didn't win it because wins matter.
They should matter. Fight on Natty says, JR, it's the SEC Invitational sponsored by ESECP. I think you meant an N there on the end, but yes, totally agree. Fight on Natties. Appreciate you reiterating my point there. Philip says, what would an auto bid 14-team playoff look like? Well, if they go with the Big Ten model, which was the 4-4-2-2-1-1, I believe it was, then you would have Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, and USC from the Big Ten. In the SEC, because we're going by standings and not the actual rankings, you would have Georgia, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, who has the better record in the SEC, even though Oklahoma has the head-to-head. Alabama would be in there. In the Big 12, you would obviously have Texas Tech and BYU. And then in the ACC, you would have Virginia and SMU. So Miami would not make it because of the head-to-head. But I think personally, what you should do is you should give 4 auto bids to each conference, and each conference chooses who are those auto bids. And then you should go based off the rankings for seeding. That's me personally. And then if you were going to go by the at-large bids, you would have Notre Dame in there, and who would it be? Miami? Or no, Oklahoma. Yeah. So that would be what the 16 team would look like if there was auto bids, the way that the Big Ten put it together there. So, all right. So James Madison and North Texas are both in there. Zach, that essentially means that the American Athletic Conference championship game between Tulane and North Texas is they're playing for a playoff spot. Does not matter what happens elsewhere. They're playing for a playoff spot. And then the James Madison being at number 25 essentially tells you that if James Madison wins and Duke wins as well in the ACC game, James Madison is guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. They put them right there at number 25. So the playoff committee did not want to rank G5 teams, but they now have them in there. And it looks like if Duke wins the ACC will not get a single team in the playoffs this year.
Crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. And on one hand, it's hard to fathom. I cannot fault the CFP for that. Like, and because this is what we wanted, right? We wanted inclusion. And I know people are kind of losing their minds over it. And they're like, the G5 doesn't deserve 1, let alone 2. But listen, we want a sport that will create more parity. And I understand that it's probably going to cause blowouts in the first round, but I still think it's good for the sport.
Yeah, and I think it creates more parity. Now, I don't think we need to create more parity with the G5, so I don't necessarily love having two G5 spots, but I don't think you have anybody to blame here but the ACC, and I think you articulated it earlier. Like the way the ACC set up their stuff and everything else, like that's why you have what they have right now. I think most likely you'll see the ACC go to like a composite type of deal for their like the composite rankings or like ESPN FPI or something like that to determine their ACC championship games in the future. But you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, let's look at the bracket. Some of the matchups we have. So Oregon would play whoever is a 12 seed, the 5 versus 12 matchup. The 12 seed looks like it would either be North Texas or Tulane. If Virginia wins, that would be who it is. If Virginia does not win the ACC championship, it would most likely be James Madison. Ole Miss will either get Virginia or North Texas Tulane, whoever wins there, and then Notre Dame versus Texas A&M at 7-10. Alabama and Oklahoma at 8-9, and then of course the top four there. Zach, if I mean, one of these teams is going to lose in the Big Ten championship, the loser of the Big Ten championship game, do they still get a bye?
Yes. I don't think there's any question about that.
I tend to think so too. I'm just wondering where would the bye be, because I don't think they're going to move Oregon up over either one of those two, especially
No.
Indiana. They're not going to move Oregon up over Indiana. I mean, I guess maybe they could. They don't always want to honor head-to-heads. Uh, and then, but Indiana could move down to number 4, and then you would get Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana all on the same side of the bracket, because if both Texas Tech and Georgia win, there is an argument there for them to be both ahead of Indiana if they lose in their conference championship game. And the same thing with Ohio State too. You could make the argument that they need to be up there over Ohio State as well.
Yeah, I have a hard time thinking that Indiana falls below 3. Because just Texas Tech has been a wagon, but also I just look at their schedule. Like they beat Utah, they're ranked, and they beat BYU, they're ranked. But like I don't think the committee necessarily values, like they certainly value Texas Tech. I don't know if they value them. I don't know if they're going to, maybe a better way to put it, I don't know if they're going to punish either Ohio State or Indiana for losing to one another.
The only way they do that is if either of them loses by like multiple scores and Texas Tech wins by multiple scores.
But even if that's true, like do you think them beating BYU again by like 22 points, which is what they beat them by the first time? Do you think that is better than losing to the number 1 or number 2 team by 14?
Well, when I say multiple scores, I mean like 38-10 or like 38-3 or something like that.
Like a 59-0 type of okay.
59.
Yeah.
Which we have seen 59-0 before.
Well,
I'm not saying we're going to see it
yeah.
this time, but yeah, I think if you see something like that, if it's 2 scores, I don't think that's going to be enough to do that. But if Texas Tech comes out there and wins 59-0, and say Ohio State or Indiana loses 38-3 or 38-10 or something like that, I could see them being moved down to 4th. But I still don't think it would happen. At the end of the day, I do think the committee is smart enough to realize, hey, we shouldn't put all the Big Ten teams on one side of the bracket. We're still trying to make money here, and having all the Big Ten teams play each other sounds pretty stupid to try and make money off of.
Well, did you see the rankings? Like Notre Dame would make them quite a bit of money, and they have put them on the bubble. So I don't know. I don't really know what this committee's thinking.
Yeah, but I think they did that more so because ESPN was like, we need our SEC in there.
Here's my hot take. I think Alabama's beating Georgia this weekend, so I think it's a moot point.
If Alabama beats Georgia, are you with me yet? You think Alabama gets the bye? I mean, they just moved them up one spot for beating Auburn by 7. Man, like, come on. They are not going to leave an
If
SEC champion out of the bye
if they
because they
if
would have to
they
move Oregon in too. Sorry, go ahead.
if they do that, then I think there is a significant reason to doubt. Like I think the committee would lose all sorts of uh credibility at that point.
To me, they already have, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, because think about it, they would still be a two-loss team. They would move dramatically ahead of a two-loss team that they lost to in Oklahoma. And so what gives them the right to move them 5 spots ahead of, I mean, I
But
guess you could say they deserve to be ahead of Georgia.
as I say, that would be the thing, though, is right. They beat Georgia twice. You know, so if you're going to keep Georgia high up there, I think the only thing, and you're pointing out, the only thing that would make that happen is if Georgia just plummeted down and Alabama didn't actually move all that high up. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's more likely you see a huge rise from Alabama. You see Georgia at 5th, Oregon put down to 6th, and then you see Alabama at 4 and Texas Tech at 3. Or Texas Tech probably, well, maybe at 2, maybe at 3. The loser of the Big Ten championship will probably be either 2 or 3.
So it'd be Alabama. Alabama would be 4, Indiana 3, Texas or
Look,
Texas Tech 2.
Max said it. Said that Josh Pate said it on tonight's show that if Alabama beats Georgia, Alabama's going to get a first round bye.
So here'd be the good thing about that though. Oregon would get a tune-up, and then they would get to play Alabama.
And Oregon would. I'm not going to speak in the hypotheticals here. I like Oregon's chances to beat Alabama.
I do too, especially if they get help. If like they're going to get healthy.
Well, especially when you saw what Auburn's secondary was able to do to Ty Simpson. Can you imagine what this Oregon secondary would do to Ty Simpson? I mean, come on.
I like that matchup a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Dan Lanning wants some revenge on Kalen DeBoer too.
That is another very good point to that whole thing there.
Okay, I kind of actually want that to happen now.
Yeah. Okay. Alabama, please win now, and let's get Oregon to play you in the second round here. All right. Anything else on the bracket before we move on, Zach?
I will
I just brought up Ole Miss. If you want to bring that up, sorry. Go ahead.
I don't have much to say about Ole Miss. It makes sense that they were 6. Like, I'm glad they didn't touch them with. Like, I thought A&M deserved to fall behind them because they haven't proven anything. Honestly,
they haven't beat anybody other than Notre Dame, which is kind of wild that they're still above Notre Dame in the 7-10 matchup. Just to see that again, I guess. But
yeah, so here's the thing, and I think this is I think an important point because while I have major issues with how they've seeded Notre Dame to this point, I do think Notre Dame is one of the most, if not the most dangerous team in this bracket that would not get a bye. And if they were in that 8 and 9, I would make the argument that you might want to lose the Big Ten championship game to avoid playing the winner of the 8-9 matchup, which would, I think if it's Oklahoma, Notre Dame's going to wipe the floor with them. But if Notre Dame's not in that matchup, you want to win the Big Ten championship game because then you avoid Notre Dame. And I would want to avoid Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, I like Notre Dame. I do have some questions still about Jeremiah Love in big games as a, running the ball so much. I'm not trying to say that he would be bad or anything like that, but I think that kind of gets overblown a little bit. Like, oh, Jeremiah Love's going to destroy everybody. And he does do very well. He obviously had a great game against USC, but I just, to me, it's still about CJ Carr. Has he developed enough yet to kind of get to that level? He struggled against USC. He hasn't really been tested by anybody else ever since that Texas A&M game. So while I do agree, I think Notre Dame is one of the most dangerous teams in this bracket because of Marcus Freeman and the players they have around him, CJ Carr as well. And the defense and everything else, I still think that's and how the defense has improved, not just by on-field production, but also from what I've watched and seen with Notre Dame. I don't think it's a guarantee that they would just take care of the next team that they would play or anything like that. So it's interesting.
I think they beat Oklahoma pretty bad.
I mean, I think they would too. I also think Oklahoma's a completely fraudulent team, though.
Well, that's why I was
I think
saying
I think Oklahoma and Ole Miss are the two most fraudulent teams in this bracket. I don't think either of them should be in, but I get why they're in. They deserve it. They've
if
won their
if
games.
if UVA wins the ACC and plays Ole Miss, do you think UVA has a shot to beat Ole Miss to knock them off?
I don't really think so. I'm not a huge UVA guy anyway. I think if you get like a North Texas or a Tulane there,
Hmm.
not Tulane, Ole Miss killed Tulane. You never know, though. Second time they play, Tulane might get a chance. But I think North Texas with that offense could be dangerous.
Hmm.
So we'll see. Zach, we have some coaches' quotes to get to here a little bit. Whoops. Hold on.
Oh
What did I do
dear.
here? What did I do here? Sorry, guys. All right, there it is. Clark Lee, good old Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. He said, let me expand this so I can see it. He said, it's just absurd the idea that we're going to open the door to teams that play in conferences that aren't the SEC that have the same record we have. I mean, it's just crazy. So he's talking about the college football playoffs. He's talking about how teams from other conferences who have the same record as SEC teams basically have no point on being in the college football playoffs if they have the same record as an SEC team, essentially saying that 10-2 SEC teams can get in, but there is no place for a Big Ten team that's 10-2 or an ACC or a Big 12 team that's 10-2. You have to be 11-1 or better if you're in any conference outside of the SEC. Zach, your thoughts?
He needs to go back to the kiddie table. The adults are talking. Like, what is this stupidity?
Especially coming from Vanderbilt, right?
Right. Like, you just got good. And when you played the good teams on your schedule, you got smoked. Shut up. I don't care. Sorry, I'm in a mood tonight.
Well, I was gonna say, I
don't
think we
love
know
this.
where Diego Pavia started to get some of his confidence from, right?
Like, what are we doing? Like, listen, there is a point of this. My dad and I were talking about this. I understand politicking for your team. I get that. Like, I don't fault Sark for doing it. I don't fault Clark Lee for doing it. But if you're going to politic, don't be a jerk and don't be disingenuous. That's what this is. Like, the SEC is so much better. Really? Let's see how you guys do again in the postseason.
And why has the only team in your conference that has won a playoff game the past 2 seasons a team that came from the Big 12? The past 2 playoffs, the only team from that conference that has won a playoff game came from the Big 12. So the team, I mean, look at Vanderbilt's schedule this year, and I know we kind of hate doing the schedule stuff a little bit, but like just it is so hollow. It is so hollow. You have South Carolina at South Carolina. That was the number 11 team in the nation at the time. South Carolina sucks. Okay, they're 4-8. They are not good. You had Alabama. You played them, killed by Alabama, 30-14. You beat LSU when they were number 10 in the nation. You by one score. LSU stinks. LSU's going to a bowl game because of the way they started things, but LSU is not a good football team. Yes, they gave Oklahoma a good game, but guess what? Oklahoma's fraudulent as well. Like they do not have an offense. Oklahoma should be treated the way that Iowa has been treated for years now, but nobody treats them that way because they get turnovers and look at that defense and everything else because they're in the SEC. But it's absolutely ridiculous that they do not get treated like Iowa. They don't get that offense made fun of by other people because Iowa's an easy target in the Big Ten, and everybody wants to target the Big Ten. Missouri, they beat them by 7. Missouri, not ranked. I mean, in the AP poll, they're ranked, but they don't have a single. I think they have one win over a bowl eligible team when I was looking at it.
And
But they don't have a single win over a team with a winning record.
I'm pretty sure that's the game that Bo Prabula broke his leg, too.
Yeah, and they were like even that entire game, and then Bo Prabula went out and Vanderbilt. Yeah, you're right. You lose to Texas, I guess at Texas, but still, you give up 34 points to Texas, who's had struggles with Arch Manning all year. You beat Auburn by 7 points. Yes, you kill Kentucky. Good job. And then you win at Tennessee. You
Wait,
destroy them.
how many points did they beat Kentucky by?
What is that? 28.
Okay, so like Louisville's better than them because they beat Kentucky by 41.
We don't do
I
transitive
I know,
properties
I
here.
know. But that's what the SEC does.
That's true. That is what they do. So if we want
I'm
to do
just
that,
giving them their own medicine.
Yeah, yeah, you make a good point. And then at Tennessee, you beat them 45-24. I mean, Tennessee's been fraudulent all season. They have not beat a single team with a winning record. Like
Yeah.
we've been saying this all season, but they get amped up a little bit because Tennessee was number 19 in the rankings. Thankfully, Tennessee is out now. Thank you, Vanderbilt, for getting rid of them. But this entire idea that like Vanderbilt, oh, they're an SEC school, oh, they're so good. It is completely ridiculous.
So Vandy has not beaten a top 25 team this year. A current top
25 team. No, they have not. And not in the college football
Yeah.
playoff rankings. If you go to the AP poll, I think Missouri and Tennessee are both ranked there. But if you
Which
go by
is
the
absurd.
CFP rankings. Yeah.
But well, but here's what I do want to say. Like Vandy is a good team this year. Like they've had a great
They have a good
season.
offense. They have a good offense.
They've had a great season for their standards. And here's what bothers me about them though. Everybody wants to put them in the playoff. Where was this, what was going on with Indiana a year ago? Similar profile of school, right? Like Indiana's not a bunch of nerds like the Vanderbilt Commodores, but like similar profile, not very rich history in football. Really good coach, really good player at quarterback. Indiana, because of their non-conference, they're like, oh, they're the worst team. Like they're fraudulent. Vanderbilt, like let's look at Vandy's non-conference again. Like, can we look at Vandy's
Charleston Southern, at Virginia Tech, Georgia State, who they scored 70 on, but they also gave up 21, and then Utah State, 6-6. Utah State, they gave up 35 points to.
And by the way, Virginia Tech is terrible this year.
Yep, fired their coach after like week 3, I think it was.
Yeah, after they lost even worse to Old Dominion.
Was it Old Dominion or South Carolina?
Oh, it's Old Dominion.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Because they lost to South Carolina, then they lost bigger to Vandy, and then they lost to Old Dominion by even more.
Yeah, because South Carolina was the first game of the season. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, and which is, I'm not trying to take shots at Vanderbilt's schedule, but what I'm saying is this is what we mean when there is a narrative against the Big Ten versus the SEC, because the SEC, like Vanderbilt, like is being championed by many at like Diego Pavia should be the Heisman winner, and Vanderbilt should be considered for the playoff. It's like last year with Indiana, with one less loss, and everybody's like, dude, they don't really deserve to be in. It's ridiculous. Have we forgotten that last year Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State? Have we forgotten that?
Can I tell you something that's going to make you mad?
Go for it.
Diego Pavia is probably going to win the Heisman. He's been getting the love all year, man. He's been getting the love all year. They don't want to give it to a Big Ten guy. And the North, the northern schools are going to, cancel out their votes for Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin, and Jeremiah Smith is going to get in there too a little bit. And Jeremiah Love. Like there are too many teams from up north this year that have viable Heisman candidates. Your two Southern guys for this award right now, Diego Pavia, Jacob Rodriguez. Jacob Rodriguez is not stealing nearly as many votes from Diego Pavia down south as Fernando Mendoza or Julian Sayin or Jeremiah Love or Jeremiah Smith will steal from each other.
This is such a great quote. Diego Pavia will be old enough to draw Social Security next year. He's like 25.
Yeah. Which is
that alone should disqualify him from winning the Heisman.
Yeah. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
Diego Pavia right now has plus 170 odds on FanDuel. Fernando Mendoza is the leader on FanDuel at plus 160, but other books you go to, Diego Pavia is in fact the leading favorite to win the Heisman Trophy.
It's just absurd. And like, I get it to extent. Like Diego Pavia has had a very good season for a team that is not that needed him to elevate them. So like, he's got the story. He's been very good, but also like from the jump, Julian Sayin has been disregarded because his team is too good, which is just stupid.
I would say Diego Pavia has been very entertaining. I wouldn't say he's been very good.
He's
I
the
would say he's
Johnny
been very
Man's
entertaining.
he's the Johnny Manziel of
Exactly. He
2025.
is Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel had the interview this year, where not interview, but like he got stopped on the side of the street and by one of those like interview on the side of the street people, and they were like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I used to play football." And they're like, "Well, what do you do now?" And he's like, "I'm just a guy," like and then they made the whole like edit of him and everything. And so people are getting the Johnny Manziel love back and everything. And yeah, it's crazy. And I think they're talking about it in the chat. I think like Pavia's brother or somebody like that got arrested at the last game or something. I mean, obviously that shouldn't impact him at all. He's his own person. You don't,
Yeah.
but still, like, just kind of shows everything that's going on there. The last thing I'll bring up, and then we'll move on to the saboteur thing with Ryan Day and everything else, which I think is going to be a fun conversation. The SEC is, in fact, the only conference who will get a 10-2 team in the playoff this season, Zach. So this whole idea that, like, Clark Lee is complaining because other teams with the same record as SEC teams are going to be in the playoffs. It's like, Clark, do you know what is going on in college football? The only conference that has anybody in the playoffs that is 10-2 is the SEC. No other conference has a 10-2 team in there.
I thought Vanderbilt was supposed to be smart.
Clark Lee graduated from there. You can be smart but not observant, right? There's a lot of people like that.
That's fair. That's fair. That was
book smart, not observant smart.
That was a cheap dig. I'm sorry. That I shouldn't.
Like I said, book smart. But maybe, yeah, we'll see. All right. Anyway, I just wanted to make that point because
it's a good
at the same
point.
time, it kind of just encapsulates everything with the quote with how stupid it is, and then it's like you don't even have a point with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Nothing that you're saying even has a point with it.
Right.
So.
It's I feel like the phrase like the SEC just needs to be stricken from college football.
Smirt. They spell it Smirt.
Wow.
Philip's on it with the comments tonight. We appreciate
he's
Philip.
MVP now.
Like and subscribe for Philip with his comments and how good he's been. You don't even come to the Big Ten Huddle live shows for us. You just come for Philip's comments. Get in the chat. We let the chat replay. You can see what Philip is saying. That's the best stuff. All right, last thing. Ryan Day had an inkling, he said, that Michigan might try to mess with them, so he prepared ahead of time. So if you're not aware of what happens here, obviously, if you're an Ohio State fan or if you're a Michigan fan, and a lot of other people know what's going on here, but if you're not aware, Ohio State had their helmet comm with Julian Sayin not working in the second half of the Michigan-Ohio State game. Now, I don't believe it was exactly deduced when that was, but I do when it started, but I do think they were talking it happened during that 20-play, like 80-some yard drive that they had where they ran the ball like 16 times. And I think I saw some people speculating that might have been, something that was going on. And I even tweeted out during the game, I was like, why is Julian Sayin going to the sidelines for his call every time? Like he's not going to his helmet comm. Like he's going to the sidelines every time. So what is this? This is weird. Come to find out, the helmet communications were not working, and the communications with the, coaches up in the booth and the coaches down on the sideline were not working either. Ryan Day was asked about it in the press conference, and he said that they had an inkling this might happen, so they went ahead and prepared ahead of time for it. Zach, do you sniff some shady business from Michigan in this one?
So I always want to be careful how I talk about Michigan, because particularly with unethical dealings, because I feel like that's all we've talked about the past 2 years with Stallions and all that stuff. So I don't want to give too much credence, or too much thought to it. But listen, the NCAA came out and said that Michigan was guilty, but decided not to punish the current team. I don't think your character changes easily. And I'll just leave it at that.
I saw some people say that it was all comms, that it wasn't just Ohio State. I think even Fisherman said that in here. Yeah,
If
Fisherman
that's the
said it was.
case, then I'm
I mean, I don't know if
I'll
that
take
was
back what
ever
I
like,
said.
if that was ever like, you know, proven or at all, but I don't know. I think we just saw the video of them like asking about the comms. So to me, the whole thing is really, really, a lot going on. To me, it's more funny than anything that like
Yeah.
you had all this going on, and then it's just one more way that Ohio State fans are trying to pile on Michigan and everything else. But I mean, if we're being honest, like, and far from me to stick up for Michigan here or anything like that. You guys know me, not a huge Michigan fan, obviously. They're the rival, but like comms going out is not the most uncommon thing in the world. And really, what I think is going on here more than anything is Ryan Day's just having some fun, right? He kind of
Mm.
smirked a little bit in the press conference, gave a wink and everything else. Like, to me, this is just Ryan Day kind of having some fun with it. He got the win. And guess what? If you're Ohio State and you get that win, you get to have a little bit of fun with it, right?
Yep.
You're not going to go out there and disrespect them and say, "Oh yeah, they were cheating," yeah. But you are going to have a little bit of fun with it. It's also just more fodder for the rivalry, more to the lore of it all and everything else. So Ryan Day said at the end of it, he said, some of the guys on staff were looking at me sideways like, why would you think that would happen? I said, I don't know. We just got to be ready for anything. And then he winked to the press conference after that. So
There was a lot of laughter.
there was a lot of laughter because everybody knew, like in the room, everybody knew what he was kind of getting at here. So
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to clarify, Max, what am I saying about Michigan men? I'm not, I don't want to equate what I was saying to all Michigan fans, all Michigan players, anything like that. I'm just saying, and I said it all throughout Signgate, where there's smoke, there's fire. And so I'm not like, I think it could have been just fun. Like, I'm not going to go conspiracy theory, like super conspiracy theory, but like there was a certain attitude by certain players and other folks on the Michigan sideline that was a little out of pocket. And
well,
I wouldn't be surprised either way.
and I mean, if I'm putting myself in Ryan Day's shoes really fast, all right. If you do go into this game, I mean, there has been cheating before with helmet comms, to be able to get the plays from, this happened in the NFL, obviously not, the exact same way, but this happened in the NFL with being able to get plays and that stuff like that from there. Ryan Day's from the Northeast. Like he knows all about that and what went on there.
Matt
You can't
Patricia,
tell-
Matt
Yeah,
Patricia was there.
you can't tell me that Ryan Day didn't think to himself one night leading up to this game and say, well, what if they somehow hack into our comms and start getting our plays? Like, you can't tell me he didn't think of that. And so, did he think that they were going to turn off the helmet comms? Maybe, I guess. But I would think with Ryan Day, with that history, knowing that, being from New Hampshire, being up from the Northeast, following that team and everything else, he probably thought to himself, you know what? It's probably good to have a backup plan just in case, because if it feels like they know every single one of our plays, maybe we just turn the helmet comms off and Julian Sain comes over to me and gets the play call every single time instead. I mean, you see it with Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley has a walkie-talkie on the sidelines sometimes. Did they have walkie-talkies prepared just in case? We didn't see a shot of Ryan Day with a walkie-talkie or anything, but more than anything, I think that it was probably Ryan Day, being jaded from the past and just being ready for anything to happen. And now he's having a little bit of fun with it.
I think that is probably more what it is.
Yeah. So, Philip says that you're hiring Connor Stallions to be your recruiting director at Kent State.
No, Philip, I take back everything I said about all your good comments tonight. I feel hurt and offended by this. This is not okay. This is a little tongue in cheek, but no, 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 no. Fire Connor Stallions into the sun. That's not hyperbole, by the way.
Yeah.
That dude needs to just leave college football behind.
Yeah.
Thank you, Max. Thank you. Thank you for saying this. I have standards. Yes.
Oh man. B-Ball asked, where do I get the hat at, JR? Yes, this is my Beat the SEC hat with the Big Ten under there. And I did put that link there in the comments if you would like to go get that hat. And the proceeds do go to the Big Ten Huddle. So it's not some other place or anything like that. You can go get it there. So I don't have anything else on it. I mean, like I said, just fun, having a good time more than anything else. You have anything else on it, Zach?
Well, we'll talk about Ryan Day a little bit more in our Big Ten championship preview, but it is fun to see him come into his own as the leader of Ohio State.
Yep, it is. All right, everybody. Appreciate you being here. If you're with us on YouTube, stick around. We are going to do segment number 2 of the show. If you are with us on podcast, we'll be leaving you at this point, and we will see you tomorrow. As tomorrow, you will get some insight into UCLA hiring Bob Chesney. We're going to talk about Nick Marsh going into the portal from Michigan State, some bowl projections, and our Ohio State-Indiana Big Ten championship preview. You won't want to miss it, so check out the podcast tomorrow. Like I said, if you're here on YouTube, you're with us, and we will start it here in just a few moments. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm JR, that's Zach, and we are presented and brought to you by FanDuel. A lot to get to in this episode. UCLA is set to hire Bob Chesney. What does that look like for UCLA? Nick Marsh is probably the first biggest name going into the portal from the Big Ten. We're going to talk about that. Where could he possibly land if he does decide to go somewhere in the Big Ten? And then also Ohio State, Indiana, preview the Big Ten championship game matchup, our predictions, everything there, and then also talk about some bowl projections for the Big Ten teams. We're going to get into it all, and as always, we have Zach Guggenheim here with us. Zach, how you doing?
I feel much better now that we're talking about the Big Ten title game and not the absurd CFP rankings. Absurd.
Just don't cut my comms and we'll be fine, okay? Just don't cut my comms. Oh no, there it is. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. We have a lot to get to here, Zach. We have UCLA is set to hire Bob Chesney as their new head coach. I love this hire personally, Zach. I think that UCLA went exactly the right route. I think that they went away from like hiring an alumni or something like that. I think you kind of needed a break. They've had some people in that role here recently. I think you go away from somebody like Chip Kelly, who was a little bit older, kind of more experienced. You go with the more hungry guy who has had a lot of success at every level he's been at. Division III, Division II, FCS. Now here, he could even make the playoffs if everything goes right for him. He would be the first conference champion out of the playoffs if they win their conference championship game and Virginia wins. So obviously, if James Madison makes the playoffs, that would kind of impact thing here. So if you're a UCLA fan, I guess you're rooting for Virginia because you want to get your head coach here as quickly as possible. But Zach, what do you think about this hire, Bob Chesney coming in from James Madison, success everywhere he's been? Is he the new Kurt Sinetti?
I think it's a great hire by UCLA. I'm shocked that he picked UCLA with where the program is right now. And my question is how much has UCLA kind of come alongside and said, this is what we're going to do for NIL. This is how we're going to make sure that you are competitive with the other programs in the Big Ten. Because my concern, like the reason why Signetti worked was because Indiana was ready to go all in on their football program. My question to UCLA is, are you ready to go all in on this football program? Are you willing to give Bob Chesney the resources that he needs? Are you going to network him with other boosters and other people? Because if you're just going to hire a good coach and think that that's going to fix everything, you're just gonna be firing him in 3 years. So that's my one concern. I think it's a home run hire. I am shocked that Penn State has not gotten in on this.
We'll talk about Penn State here in just a second because I do think there is some discussion here, and if I'm a UCLA fan, I don't I'm not screaming from the rooftops yet, right? So we'll get to that in a second. But I do think that this is a very interesting hire for UCLA because it is exactly what you talked about. There is no guarantee here that if you don't spend, you're going to win, right? For Michigan State, you have a little bit of like, if we don't spend, Pat Fitzgerald's still going to give us, probably bowl eligibility with what he can do, and that's kind of your floor. If UCLA doesn't spend here, Bob Chesney can be one of the best head coaches out there in the country, but if you don't get talent at UCLA, you're probably not going to win at UCLA,
Mhm.
especially with Bob Chesney not having a whole lot of experience out west, not being a Power Four head coach before. I would say, that I wouldn't say that, Indiana's spending was everything that got them the wins because I still think there's a lot of 3-star talents and stuff like that on that roster. I think Kirk Cinnetti's evaluations was probably the masterful, combination between the two. We'll see if Bob Chesney can have some of those same evaluations to know that he's probably going to bring his quarterback, his running back, his wide receiver, and a couple cornerbacks with him from James Madison. So if he brings those guys with him, that'll give him a nice good core to work with. But overall, I think that this hire for UCLA is very good. But in today's
Mhm.
day and age, you can have a great hire, but if you don't support him and if you get some bad luck with injuries, example A, Luke Fickell, it's no guarantee that it's going to be the best thing ever.
Yeah, I'm looking at his resume right now. So I live right by Bucknell University, which is in the Patriot League for
Mm-hmm.
FCS. He was a coach in the Patriot League for Holy Cross for 6 years. He won the league 5 times.
Mm-hmm. Holy
Like,
Cross doesn't do that.
no, no, I mean that's the thing. Like,
It's not like
I,
the Patriot League is some juggernaut or anything like that. It's just that Holy Cross is not that kind of football program, right?
right. Yeah, I mean that's kind of incredible actually that they were able to do that.
Yeah, and then he goes to James Madison, and he's about ready to win the Sun Belt this year at James Madison.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love this hire. I think it's great for UCLA. The only caveat I have is that Penn State obviously going through it with Kalani Sitake, and this is one of my reasons why I'm like pump the brakes on calling Penn State out too much yet because like coaching does matter, but your investment in NIL, your investment in getting players matters just as much, if not more, nowadays. And if even if Penn State goes out and hires, a pretty good G5 coach or something like that, they could have the investment. And as much as UCLA fans might hate to hear this, I think they would agree with me on it that like UCLA has not always proven to have the best administration in the world. So, are you going to trust that UCLA is going to, their administration is going to come to you and say, "Yes, we are going to provide all this," and then Penn State comes to you this week, we'll see, and says, "Hey, we know we were going after Sataki instead of you, but we're prepared to give you 25, $30 million every year in NIL to go after some players." I don't know if they actually have that much, but I'm just saying, like, if they were able to do that. And hey, you're also going to be back home, and at the same time, this is a program you can win national championships at. UCLA, maybe eventually, but not right now, right? Penn State just made
Yeah.
the Final Four 2 years ago. They're able to get talent, the DMV, everything else out there. Like, I'm not telling UCLA fans to be concerned, but with everything that's going on at Penn State and the pressure that Pat Kraft is probably feeling right now, I do not think it is out of the question that Pat Kraft would circle back to Bob Chesney and say, "Hey, did you sign yet? Because if not, we've got a deal here that you might be interested in."
Yeah, I wonder though if this, and I don't know everything going on with Pat Kraft, but I almost wonder if that might scare Bob Chesney away because it doesn't seem like all is right in State College in the athletic department. I'm not saying I don't have any sources. I'm not saying like I'm not trying to speculate too much. I'm just there's a reason why it's been like really odd of a coaching search for Penn State.
I think Penn State went big fish hunting, right? And that's what Pat Kraft wanted to do. He wanted to go out there and get as big of a hire as he possibly could. That's why you heard that there was real talks with Urban Meyer. That's why you heard he talked with Brian Hartline. And, it's not like Brian Hartline is out of this Penn State thing yet either. I think Brian Hartline actually could be one of their best hires, and he seems like he's pretty far down their list. But they have other options too. Like Brent Key is still an option. Jeff Brom is still an option. Like I said, we'll talk about all this on Thursday with Chris. But like this Penn State stuff, yes, Bob Chesney could be a big name that they go for, but he's not necessarily the last one they could go for. And as much as I hear you on the administration stuff, like Pat Kraft doesn't have the reputation. Like, yes, he has some like questionable stuff that's gone on, especially to the outside world with this coaching search and everything, but he doesn't have near the reputation that Martin Jarman and the UCLA administration has.
That's fair. That's a good point.
So, again, I'm not trying to bash UCLA here or anything like that, but I do think that the perception that UCLA's administration has could hurt them here. But if UCLA is able to hold on to him, which honestly I hope they do hold on to him because I think he's going to be good. I think it'd be great for the program. Are you concerned about the no West Coast ties or anything like that for Bob Chesney?
A little, because it is going to be different, and he's going to have to recruit against some pretty big West Coast powers. Like Oregon is not going away, although I think there's real concern with Stein and possibly Lapoy moving on. Lapoy is in talks with possibly becoming the Cal head coach.
I think they said that that's almost finalized at this point, so it's probably going to happen. Yeah.
So there's like, you could see a dip at Oregon, but USC is still there. So I think the learning curve is going to be pretty steep. So that would be my I think that is a concern for sure.
And my biggest concern with it is, who do they have on staff that is going to alleviate some of that, right? At Penn State, if you hired a guy like Kalani Sitake, who doesn't have any East Coast ties, DMV ties or anything like that, you at least have Terry Smith there, right? And you can keep Terry Smith around. Terry Smith's going to help him out a lot with recruiting and stuff like that. Maybe I've just not done enough research, but I don't know who UCLA has there that is going to be the West Coast ties for you. Sounds like Jerry Neuheisel is going to, be offered some kind of analyst role or something like that there at UCLA to stick around. But if I'm Jerry Neuheisel, I just got done calling plays for pretty much an entire year. I'm going someplace where I can try to be an offensive coordinator, where I can try to be a quarterback coach or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I think you'd probably want to be a G5 offensive coordinator or a G5 quarterback coach before you'd want to be an analyst. Maybe an analyst at a Big Ten school is better. I don't know, but I would think you'd want to show off like some of your coaching pedigree and have a quarterback that you can say, "Yeah, I coached him. Look at what I did with him."
I'm trying to remember, how old is Jerry Neuheisel?
He's only like in his 30s. He's pretty young.
He's 33. He's 33. He's 33.
Really young.
I mean, I could see like probably a position coach at G5. Maybe co-coordinator, but I mean, the kid called one or two great games, and then it was. I'm just saying, I can see why they're offering him an analyst role and not a bigger role, because he threw together a great plan against Penn State, which had bigger problems than just. There were bigger problems there when they played them. So,
right, and I would say that it's not just the game plan against Penn State. It is calling plays for an entire year, right? Like, honestly, something that I would say be on the lookout for is UNLV with Dan Mullen, because it sounds like Corey Dennis over there, the offensive coordinator, is getting some love from some other schools out there. Oregon is one that names have been mentioned there. I don't think he's going to get that Oregon job, but they're one that has been looking at him. So he has an opportunity to possibly go to a Big Ten or a Big 12, type of job and be an offensive coordinator there, which I think he would take over UNLV. If that happens, does Dan Mullen say, "Hey, this guy called plays at a Big Ten program for most of the year. Let's bring him on in and do an interview and see what we can get out of Jerry Neuheisel."
Yeah, and you got the pedigree.
Yeah. So overall, I like the hire of Bob Chesney. I do have some concerns with the no West Coast ties and everything. To be fair, I had the same concerns with Kalen DeBoer going to Alabama. I had similar concerns with Kalani Sitake going to Penn State. However, I do think there would have been some stuff that could have helped with that. But overall, this would be a good hire by UCLA, and they should do everything they possibly can to make this happen and make sure Penn State doesn't come back around and try to get them to go there instead.
Yep, agreed.
So, all right. Nick Marsh. Will Nick Marsh join any Big Ten teams? Nick Marsh is in the transfer portal. Zach, the star wide receiver for Michigan State, brother of Andrew Marsh at Michigan right now. He entered the transfer portal very shortly after Jonathan Smith was fired. It sounds like rumors were that he was going to enter the portal regardless, so I don't think it has anything to do with Jonathan Smith. I don't think that, he's just going to follow Jonathan Smith wherever he is or anything like that. But I do think that Nick Marsh could find himself at a pretty big program next year, whether it's in the SEC or the Big Ten. Zach, what are your thoughts on Nick Marsh leaving Michigan State, and where do you think he might go?
For the good of his career, I think it makes a lot of sense. They have not had good quarterback play, and I love Pat Fitzgerald, but like dynamic offense is not what Pat Fitzgerald is known for. So there's just a lot of unknowns at Michigan State. It'll be his third year. I would love to see him stick it out, but I understand it. Honestly, the first team I thought of, Indiana.
Yeah, I could see it.
They're losing Elijah Surratt. They're losing EJ Williams. Omar Cooper might go to the draft.
He
like
could
he's
go
a
to the
redshirt
draft,
junior.
Yeah.
Like, I know you've got some guys coming in. What's the kid? Charlie Becker, who's been great in relief of Surratt. But you need more receivers. And guess what? Indiana has a reputation now of having an explosive and efficient offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'd go.
And Nick Marsh fits that kind of brand of football that they like to run, or at least they have run this year with Fernando Mendoza. Big X wide receiver you can put on the outside, have him go out and battle for some balls out there. Obviously, that's not all they do, but they do, the back shoulder throws and everything else. And he would be a guy that could definitely make that happen for them. So I do think Nick Marsh would fit that pretty well. When you were talking, I was thinking through what is Nick Marsh like, because you were kind of talking about it there. You ever had like something in your house and it wasn't like bad, it was actually pretty good, but maybe it was broken, and you set it out there on the side of the road and you were like, free, doesn't work, but maybe you can make it work type of deal? You ever had one of those? I feel like that's what Nick Marsh is doing right now. He's sitting outside the Michigan State facility, and he's like, hey, didn't have a great season, didn't work, but you could really turn me into something here. So, free, come on over and get me. I hope that's not disrespectful to Nick Marsh. I just thought of that in my head, so I was doing it. But he's going to be a great player wherever he goes.
Yeah. Fight on. I start his comment here. He said, I think USC is also talking to him.
Yeah, that would make total sense.
Yeah, he was excellent his freshman season with a not very good passing attack. Mm-hmm. I would love to see him. Like, honestly, I doubt this happens, but like I could see Ohio State at least having a conversation with him. But I think it's more likely Indiana, USC,
Michigan.
I'm trying to think. I don't think he's going to Michigan.
His brother's there.
Yeah, and he saw that his brother had 0 catches against Ohio State.
Yeah, that's true. But man, could you imagine a 1-2 duo of Nick Marsh and Andrew Marsh? That'd be pretty great.
It would be great for Michigan. Let me just say that. It would be great for Michigan. And they probably could find a way to make it work from an NIL perspective.
Oh yeah, but Michigan's got plenty of NIL. They can make it work. Yeah,
they can make it work. The problem is he's leaving a bad passing attack to then go to a bad passing attack right now. I just don't. I think Fight On has a good point. He's from Long Beach, so like he could go back home to the West Coast.
And sometimes that matters in the portal. I mean, I've done enough of these portal prediction early things that like you definitely want to look at where they're from, but it doesn't always indicate where they're gonna go is where they're from and stuff. Sometimes it can be a big indicator. So like I said, it's definitely something you need to look at, but it's not
Uh,
always the indicator to look at.
yeah. I want to get to this comment here real quick. If Ohio State has interest, he'd be a fool to go anywhere else. Ohio State's wide receiver development is top notch. I agree. Here's a question I have though. When is the last time Ohio State brought in a receiver in the transfer portal?
Well, they're actually talking like Ohio State's probably going to have to bring in a receiver from the portal this year for like the first time under Brian Hartline because his numbers are so low. Because Brian Hartline goes out and gets, goes for the biggest. Like he's a great recruiter. He gets really, really good prospects, but he doesn't get very many of them. Like he gets like one or two guys a season most likely. And this season, I think he has 5 guys committed in his wide receiver class. He's about to lose 2 of them. And Chris Henry Jr. could get one of them. Chris Henry Jr. might go to USC or not USC or Oregon. West Virginia fans are really, thinking he's going to go there. I don't think that's happening, but
No.
but Chris Henry Jr. could go to Oregon. So if you lose Chris Henry Jr. and Caden Dixon Wyatt, you only bring in 3 guys, albeit I think they're good receivers, but they're not like the 5-star guys. And honestly, like, have the receivers looked all that impressive this season when when Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate weren't in there? I mean, they're obviously impressive, but they were not up to the standard of Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith.
No, but I like how much of that was how much of that like it seemed like why can't I remember his name? Number 5, Mylan Graham.
Mylan Graham, yeah.
Seemed like he was in the doghouse for a couple things. Quincy Porter's been hurt.
That's true.
So I'm not saying you're wrong. Like I think they probably will go in the portal. I don't know how they're going to go after specific people. And I think Nick Marsh might be one of the top receivers in the portal. I just think there are other teams that have greater need than Ohio State.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I think you're probably looking at other schools like LSU and Auburn that are probably going to look at him too, right? Auburn just got their new head coach, Lane Kiffin at LSU. He's going to make the look to make a splash in the transfer portal as he did at Ole Miss, and definitely with this season as well. And then I would not be surprised if Notre Dame, second year of CJ Carr, they go out.
That's a good point.
In the state of Indiana, he's still up there, in that kind of area. So if he does like going to school in the Northwest, he stays up there. But yeah, I would say USC, Indiana, and LSU are probably the 3 most likely, I would say, at this point.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, LSU has the whole like wide receiver, development and everything else, and they've done it with multiple different coaches. So there's a whole lot of hype there with them.
Yeah.
So. All right. Anything else on Nick Marsh?
Nope. Good work.
Right. Let's get into the big preview. Zach, I don't know why I have those numbers there.
Is that your score prediction?
That is not my score prediction. That is the score of the Oregon-Washington game. So I guess I left that there by accident. Let me go change that. Zach, Ohio State faces Indiana in the Big Ten championship game. Going to be a great matchup. Number 1 versus number 2. First number 1 versus number 2 matchup in the Big Ten championship. First undefeated. Well, no, it's not the first undefeated, but it's the first in a while undefeated matchup. I think it's since like 2006 or 7 or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. Sorry. Really bad hosting by me. But these are the 2 most elite teams in college football, in my opinion. You have Kirk Cinetti, Ryan Day, 2 of the top 3, if not the top 2 head coaches in college football right now. You look at what Ryan Day has done, win the national championship, what Kirk Cinetti has done in less than 2 years there at Indiana. I don't think it's a debate there. At the very least, top 3, if not top 2. You have great coordinators, Bryant Haynes and Mike Shanahan for Indiana, Brian Hartline, Matt Patricia for Ohio State. You have 2 Heisman hopeful quarterbacks going to be duking it out in this one. And then the receivers, obviously, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate versus Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper Jr. I think the running backs are underrated. Roman Himby, Keelan Black, Bo Jackson there at Ohio State. the linebackers in this game, Aiden Fisher, Isaiah Jones, Elijah Hardy, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles for Ohio State. Like, there are just so many, both defensive lines are fantastic. There are so
Hmm.
many elite matchups in this game. I cannot wait to watch it. Zach, what is going to be drawing your eyes first in this game? Whether it's a player, a position group, a position battle, what are you going to be looking to first in this game?
So my eyes are going to be glued on how does Indiana's offensive line deal with Ohio State's front seven. And part of the reason why is, and I've mentioned this a few times on the show, if you go back and look at Indiana versus Wisconsin, Iowa, Penn State, and Oregon versus versus everybody else they've played. Like Indiana gets rolling and they're just efficient and they are dynamic and the running game gets going and you just can't stop them. In those 4 games that I mentioned, Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, and Wisconsin, they were held under their averages by quite a bit. Like against Wisconsin, which is a great run defense, by the way. Against Wisconsin, they were held to 388 yards total, which is still pretty good, but 83 yards on 37 carries. Against sorry, my computer's a little slow. I just pulled these up. Against Penn State, it was a little better in general with running the ball. 108 yards on 31 carries, 3.5 yards per carry, 326 yards total against Penn State. By the way, Ohio State had like 490, just for point of reference. Indiana against Oregon, where they obviously, played a great game against Oregon, but Indiana again, 111 yards on 37 carries, 3.0 yards per carry. And then against Iowa, they had 337 yards total, 104 yards on 39 carries, 2.7 yards per rush. So all those games, 3.5 yards or less per carry. And it was against I think the 4 best defensive lines that they played against. I think Ohio State's front 7 is better. And my theory is, Josh Pate and College Football Nerds, they talk about freeze point. Is this going to be a game where we see Indiana's offense struggle to keep up because the defensive line kind of limits their ability to be efficient?
Yeah, I think that the point on the defensive line for Ohio State is probably the biggest thing you're going to look at in this game, not just because of the pass rush and trying to get pressure on Fernando Mendoza, but also stopping the run. If you are going to stop this offense, you have to stop the run. Now, you hardly can stop this offense at all. I don't think anybody's going to completely stop this offense this season. The best you can do is try to limit them, try to slow them down, and that's going to be Ohio State's best bet in this one. I've seen some people say like, "Oh, Ohio State's going to win this 38-3 or like 24-6 or something like that." I don't think that's going to happen. Indiana's going to score the most points on Ohio State this season of any team, probably all season, maybe even in the playoffs as well. And that's not anything against Ohio State. That's just how good of an offense Indiana has. But Indiana has to come in with the best offensive line play they've had all season. They're a little banged up. They've had 7 different starters this season. And what was the biggest issue last year in the Ohio State Indiana game? It was offensive line and special teams. And so you need both of those 2 units to be playing at their absolute best. I think it's fun that there's Zen Michalski on this offensive line for Indiana, former Ohio State offensive lineman who transferred there here in the offseason. But do not underestimate Pat Coogan and how good of a center he is. He faced Ohio State last year, albeit with the Jim Knowles defense and not the Matt Patricia defense. But he did see some of these guys. Carter Smith faced him last year, and Carter Smith actually did not play poorly in that game against Ohio State. He was one of the offensive linemen that did rather well in that one. It was just other offensive linemen around him. weren't doing all that great. But I want to see what the interior of the offensive line looks like against this Ohio State defensive line. This Ohio State defensive line lines up their big defensive tackle, Caden McDonald, right over the center. It's going to be a great matchup for Pat Coogan. And then those two guards this season they haven't been excuse me, they haven't been bad, but they have been some of the weaker parts, especially with a Johnny coming in, in relief there at left guard. What's that going to look like if Indiana's offensive line plays really well and they're able to hold off Ohio State's defensive line? I think Indiana has a really good chance of winning this game, but Ohio State's defensive line is going to have to play really, really well if they want to make sure they secure this win.
So Todd McShay was talking about Caden McDonald on his show the other day, and he made the point that he thinks that Caden McDonald is the glue of the defense. And I thought that was a helpful thought. Is this the best defensive tackle that Indiana has played?
Well, let's see, for Iowa, they have Graves. Yeah, I think better than who Iowa has. Oregon has really good defensive tackles in Bear Alexander and Amari Washington. I would say Caden McDonald's played better this season, but that's still really close. I might take the pair of Oregon's defensive tackles, but Malone has been playing well. Houston's been playing well lately, so that's a really hard choice. Who else do you say? Wisconsin. I'll take them over to Wisconsin, guys.
Zane Durant, Penn State.
Yeah, I'd take him over Zane Durant easily. But Zane Durant's a 3-tech. Caden McDonald's more of a 1-tech.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd still take him over the Penn State guys. So yeah, probably the best defensive tackle to see this season.
Yeah. So I think that's like he neutralized. I mean, it wasn't just him, but like Michigan in the first half last week. I mean, banging on him, 118 yards in the first half. And then K-Mac kind of just mans up and just shut it down. And that was against a good center in Greg Crippen.
I am concerned that we're taking too much away from that Michigan game.
That's possible.
The Michigan offensive line does have 3 redshirt freshmen starting on it. Kenyatta Jackson had his best game of the year because the left tackle from Michigan was on skates the entire game. He couldn't block Kenyatta Jackson. That's not going to happen with Carter Smith. Carter Smith's too good.
That's true. Well, Carter Smith, I'm just looking on here. Ryan Wilson at CBS has Carter Smith as a first round pick right now. So he's legit
awesome.
dude.
And he's going to be fantastic for in this game and through the playoff run for Indiana, however long they're playing for that. So it's funny, you go to PFF and Indiana is surpassing Ohio State in basically every PFF grade. So it just continues to show how disciplined and how well this team plays. So when you go to like the graded stuff, a lot of graded, stats and stuff like that has Indiana winning this game. But I still think that there are aspects of last year that have to be talked about with the elite athleticism that Ohio State had, and has Indiana developed enough to get past that, and have they learned enough? Because Kirsten said it himself. That was a learning experience for him last year. They learned what it was like to go up against a very elite team, and I think Ohio State has even more of these kind of athletic freaks on their roster than they did last year. They had some really good guys last year, but I don't know if they had some of the athletic freaks that Ohio State had last year. So what is Indiana going to do to go up against those guys? I think Indiana improved their roster, improved their team, no doubt. But it's just going to continue to be a great matchup. On the outside, Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper Jr., what are they going to do against these cornerbacks for Ohio State? And then also, Fernando Mendoza, we talked about it with him. He is just such a smart guy. He does his homework every single time. You are not going to get blown coverage or anything like that past Fernando Mendoza. Really, your only way to stop him from throwing the ball down the field is to get pressure on him, because that's when he struggled this season. Outside of getting pressure on him, he really hasn't struggled this season.
Yeah, and I think, again, a great point in this, when Indiana played Illinois, which I know a lot of people are going to bring up the Illinois game, but no pressure, like clean pocket. And when you have that at Indiana, the way that this offense is designed, the way Cignetti coaches you, you're going to score in the 50s and 60s. Like, so if you don't have the defensive line to shut down and get pressure on Mendoza and stuff the running game, like you're going to get at least 40 put on you. Like that's just not, it's just expected. So you've got to have the defensive line, and you've got to, not just in the run game, but putting pressure. Mendoza's been phenomenal. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's just a joke that Diego Pavia is like even with him right now in the Heisman race. Mendoza's been phenomenal. And he's been gutsy, has 2 come from behind wins, has the best win, I think the best win in all of college football at Oregon. And I think, to your point, Mendoza easily is the best quarterback that Ohio State's faced all year. Like, it's someone, I think someone misheard me in the last video and was like, you guys think Arch Manning was great against Ohio State? No, I don't. I said there's a similarity with how Arch runs to Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah,
That's the only similarity. Mendoza is miles above Arch right now.
And Mendoza's legs are going to give Ohio State issues, not only because of his athleticism and kind of sneaky how he can be with running the ball, but also because Shanahan calls a great offense. I mean, he seems to know when to call those QB draws, when to run Fernando Mendoza every single time. To me, the biggest thing, I know I'm going back to the offensive line, we're going to get away from this here in a second, but the biggest thing with Mendoza is, does he have time for some of these RPOs that they run? Really, once the offensive line started getting injured more and more pressure was getting on Mendoza, that's when you started to see these RPOs go away a little bit more. And I think it was because of some of the pressure that teams were able to get on Mendoza. Does the offensive line for Indiana, do they get healthy? Do they have their guys back? I'm really, really interested to see what happens in this game with that. And then I'm also interested, do you want to read Philip's comment before I move on from the quarterbacks?
I was going to say, like, Philip says this, I think Altmaier is probably the best quarterback that Ohio State's faced. And I would probably outside of Mendoza, and Mendoza is, I think, much better. And I don't mean that to denigrate Altmaier, but like Altmaier is going to be like a day 2, day 3 pick. Mendoza could be the number 1 pick in the draft. Like that's the difference.
Yeah. And, excuse me, athletic profile and stuff like that factors into that as well. But yeah. One thing I think is going to be really interesting in this game is that Indiana does love to play all 3 of their linebackers a lot. I mentioned all 3 of them. Rajah Hardy, Aiden Fisher, Isaiah Jones, all of these guys, they love to play all 3 of these linebackers. And Ohio State, with their, wide receiver depth with Brandon Inniss, and if Quincy Porter can play, we'll see. But with that kind of stuff, are they really going to line up with 3 linebackers out there if they have Brandon Inniss out there against their 3 linebackers? Because you would essentially have to put one of your linebackers on Brandon Inniss if that happened. And I don't think that's a very good idea at all. I think this is a game where you're going to see Ohio State spread it out a whole lot more. You're going to try to get less linebackers on the field for Indiana because they are really, really skilled at linebacker, and try to get them to have a nickel in there more often. Not saying Indiana's nickel is bad or anything like that. Their linebackers are all just so good, and the less of them you can have on the field, the better opportunities that Ohio State will have to score on this defense.
But do you think they'll do that at the expense of taking Kaczmarek and Claire off the field?
Well, you can go 3 wide and still have Kaczmarek out there and a running back, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So they might just switch him out a little bit more, but you didn't see Claire as much as I thought you would in that Michigan game.
Kaczmarek was, and you called this, by the way, Kaczmarek was like the secret weapon. Like
that throw over the middle to him was huge.
It was a great throw, but then his blocking,
his blocking was
I mean, he was murdering people out there.
I mean, we've seen Derek Moore go up against tight ends this season, and it's been a really bad idea to put a tight end on Derek Moore. At one point, they had Will Kaczmarek blocking Derek Moore one play, and then the very, very next play, they had him blocking Jayshawn Barham. There was no difference. I mean, the tackles blocking those 2 versus Kaczmarek blocking those 2, it was almost no difference because, the tight end for Ohio State, Kaczmarek, is just such a good blocker. So, what do you think of the matchup between D'Angelo Pons and Jeremiah Smith? Because Pons only 5'9". I know he gets knocked for this a lot, and he kind of has a chip on his shoulder about it and says the bigger the wide receiver, the better because they're slower. And typically that is the case, but Jeremiah Smith, an alien, so that impacts things. But they went to high school, they were at the same high school. D'Angelo Pons coming in with a big chip on his shoulder, going up against Jeremiah Smith. They play some really good coverage in the back end of Indiana that I think are, they're going to do a good job of going up against Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate. But trying to stop those two is nearly impossible. If they do decide to go man and we see D'Angelo Pons on Jeremiah Smith, what do you think that matchup is going to look like?
So this will start to tip my hand where I'm leaning in this game. I think Ohio State's actually going to try to avoid D'Angelo Pons.
Line him up in the slot a little bit more, stuff like that.
We have not seen Smith really in different, like I don't know how much he's lined up in the slot, but I don't think he's been there often. Rarely is he isolated on another side. I mean, it's very clear when they do, because that's when they target him, and he's almost always catching it. But I wonder, and this is not my original thought, I forget who I heard it from, but I just have a sense that this is where Ohio State starts to try to be much more intentional about targeting Jeremiah Smith. We saw it when the playoff run started a year ago. Ryan Day has been saying, when we need to open it up, we will. I don't think he's going to be as foolish as he was the first couple plays last week, where he I shouldn't say Ryan Day was foolish, but Julian Sand, I think, is going to learn. I think Julian Sand is going to learn from that throw. But I just think they're going to try to find a way to manufacture easy touches for 4. And I think part of that will actually be avoiding D'Angelo Pons, because I don't care how short he is. That dude's a baller. And I don't know, like, best corner that Ohio State's played.
I mean, there's probably a lot on this team that is best that Ohio State has played at this point. I think there's a lot on this Ohio State team that has been best Indiana's played at this point. Both have played tough schedules. Ohio State played Texas, Indiana played Oregon. Like, it's not like the schedules are lacking talent, but yeah, I mean, Indiana and Ohio State just have such great elite players on both sides.
Well, and it's a testament to Pons' competitiveness too, because I think, in general, even if you have a great corner, if you're 5'9" going up at 6'3" receivers, like, you're going to target that all day, every day.
Yeah.
But I think Pons is such a unique player that I'm not saying they won't challenge him, but I think they will try to actually, they'll try to manipulate the defense by moving Smith.
Yeah, which would be the smart thing to do, in my opinion. You don't want to just go straight up at, their best player with your best player. If you can try to manipulate him on somebody else and do something else, I think it'd be a great decision. I think Ryan Day is going to try to come out hot again, just like he did against Michigan. I don't think the interception scared him off from it. I don't think it scared Julian Sane off from it. And I don't think this is a game where either team should go for more than one field goal. I think this is a game where both teams are going to, play good offense. And if either of these teams go for a second field goal or something like that, I think that could be a big difference in this game, because I do think this game's going to be close. As much as, we did mention that Ohio State won by a good amount of scores last time they played, we came on here and said it was not as lopsided as people thought. Indiana did outrush Ohio State, and while the special teams play was bad for Indiana, that was kind of a big turning point in that one. So if Indiana can get the special teams right in this one and not give up a huge play or great field position, a shanked punt or anything like that to Ohio State, that's going to be huge to put them in a better field position. And Indiana, by the stats, has been the team that's been putting putting themselves in better field position this season than Ohio State. It's not to say that Ohio State's bad with it or anything like that, but Indiana's just done it more consistently this season. And I do think that's a big part of the Indiana improvement this season that doesn't get talked about enough, is how much they have been more of a threat with their special teams. And it has given them better field position out there to set up their offense in better scenarios.
Yeah, I agree.
So, is there anything else we're missing in this one? I mean, Indiana's defensive line is probably the last thing we need to talk about. They were huge in that game against Oregon. What was it? 8 tackles for loss. I think 6 sacks in that game. They were able to have. Listen, this Ohio State offensive line is good, and they played really, really well against Michigan. But Indiana does do some different stuff with their defensive line, and Tegra on the inside of Ohio State has got a little bit this season by some of the stunts and things like that people can run. Luke Montgomery is a mauler. Phillip Daniels is a mauler, but both those guys can over pursue at times a little bit. And so if you get them overworking, you could possibly get into the backfield and have some more tackles for loss. I mean, what's your thoughts on the Indiana defensive line versus the Ohio State offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, I think Indiana can absolutely get them. And while Sayan has been, I think, very good navigating the pocket and getting out of harm's way when he needs to, he's not as mobile as Mendoza is. We have not seen Sayan have to deal with a lot of pressure. I don't think there was a recorded pressure against.
There were 3 against.
Were
Michigan.
there 3?
Yeah.
I thought I had saw it somewhere where there was 0, but
I think there were 0 quarterback hurries.
Okay. So there are 3
there's
pressures.
Like a difference between
no
quarterback hurries and like the PFF pressures and stuff like that. So sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think it'll be intriguing to see how many hurries and sacks Indiana. Like, I think that could be the stat that tells us whether this is a game that's close and ends up in Indiana's favor, or if this is a game where Ohio State has maybe more of a significant edge than people might think. If Indiana gets 3 sacks, this is absolutely a dogfight. And this game goes down to the wire, and Indiana might win it. I think if Sayan is clean, I don't like Indiana's chances at all.
Well, if he's clean, it means he can throw down the field more, right? It means Carnell Tate's going to run down there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with Carnell Tate, is that it's not that the safeties of other teams are bad. Like I said, the safeties of Michigan, the deep safeties are not great. Since they've been missing Rod Moore, that's been a huge issue for them. But it's not to say that safeties are bad against Ohio State. It's just some of the routes and things like that Ohio State is able to run builds them enough separation. And Julian Sayin is so accurate at times that it gives them so many issues. And obviously, Carnell Tate is one of the huge reasons for that. Example A, the Wisconsin catch where he had 2 guys on him but still came down with it. We'll have to see. I'm really interested to see how that plays out with the pressure from Indiana's defensive line. To me, I'm with you. If Indiana wins this game, the defensive line is going to have to be absolutely amazing. Not just in run defense, not just in pass defense. They're going to have to be absolutely amazing, getting pressure on Julian Sayin and also stopping the run for Ohio State and not allowing them to have all the time in possession, because that killed Michigan, how much time in possession they had. And Indiana can't let Ohio State get anywhere near 40 minutes of time in possession.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, that's what killed Oregon, right?
Mm-hmm.
One other thing we haven't talked about, Indiana's receivers are dogs, man. And this is, I think, legitimately the first offense that can consistently stretch Ohio State. Omar Cooper, as much I love Surratt, I think Cooper might be the X factor in this game for Indiana.
Cooper's electric with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
And he's able to go up and get at the ball too. He can do both.
Yeah. So I think if you're looking for, if Indiana wins the game, what has to happen? I think the defensive line has to just wreak havoc. 3+ sacks, a bunch more hurries. And then I think on the other side, I think they're able to run enough where they keep the offense running. And Omar Cooper in particular, I think, just exploits the middle of the field. I think Ohio State's defense is a little vulnerable to those seam routes. over the middle. I like. I think you could really see Cooper having a field day in the middle of the field.
This is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll get to predictions. He could if Indiana goes to the middle of the field. They don't go to the middle field this year like they did last year with Curtis Rourke. Now, that's not to say that, like they can't go to the middle of the field. They can, but they just don't go to the middle field as much as they did with Curtis Rourke. And I think that is where Ohio State's secondary is the most susceptible. The seams down the middle of the field, trying to crossing post riders, because I don't think Ohio State's linebackers are as good in coverage as some other teams' linebackers are. I think Indiana's linebackers are excellent in coverage. So I do think this is an area that if Indiana is going to win this game, they're going to have to attack the middle of the field more. Shanahan has showed last year he's comfortable with attacking the middle of the field. Does he do it this year with Fernando Mendoza? We'll see. I think this is going to be a huge part with this game. And if we just see Indiana continue to go outside, I think Matt Patricia is going to hang on to that and go to that. But I think over the middle of the field, if Indiana pressures that a little bit more, I think that'll open things up more on the outside, and you'll see Indiana be able to start doing more of kind of what they wanted to do. Zach, what is your prediction for this game and why?
So I want to preface this by saying I picked Indiana against Oregon.
You did, and you were correct.
Yeah. I don't think Ohio State is Oregon. And I am very, very clearly an Indiana fan this year. I think they are excellent. But I think that offensive line, defensive line issue that I've seen against Iowa, against Penn State, against Oregon, against Wisconsin, they got past those, right? I saw someone comment in the chat like, yeah, and they won those games. They did, because all four of those teams have significant holes, even Oregon to an extent, like especially middle of the season. I did not think they were playing super well. Ohio State is starting to kick into another gear. And while there are some chinks that you can get some yardage, I just don't think this is not, to me, a great matchup for Indiana because of that line of scrimmage difference. And that's not me saying that Indiana's line of scrimmage is bad. I'm saying Ohio State's starting to ramp it up. And I think we're going to see the same trend where I think Indiana's going to get a couple of early scores like Penn State did, like Michigan did. And then I think Ohio, honestly, this is my halftime score might be like 20-17 Ohio State. Something like that, or 17-13, something in that realm. I even think Indiana might take the lead in the third quarter. Like maybe get to 20-17, 21-17. And then I think Ohio State's going to go touchdown, and it's going to be over.
So
I've got 38-21.
Wow. Zach, do you remember what I said after Indiana beat Oregon?
Remind me, refresh me.
I did pick Indiana to win that game. And after Indiana won that game, I said, until Indiana gives me a reason to not pick them to win, I'm going to pick Indiana to win every single game. I'm a man of my word, and I will pick Indiana to win this game.
Wow.
Over Ohio State. I think Indiana wins this game 24-21 over Ohio State. I think Ohio State is dealing with a lot of emotion right now coming off that Michigan game. I think last year you saw Ohio State get a lot of time before that postseason game. Obviously, it was different emotion then, but I think you saw Ohio State get a very, very emotional after that Michigan game. That emotion is going to continue to carry on. How do they respond? What does this week of preparation look like? I have no doubt that they're going to prepare well, but I think Indiana is going to prepare very well too. And I think that Indiana knows areas of this Ohio State defense they can attack. And also, I think Ohio State knows this isn't the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to go easy on them or anything like that, but I do think that Ohio State is going to be not going full throttle. I think they went full throttle against Michigan and kind of died it down a little bit more. I think that same stuff is going to happen here a little bit, and I think Indiana is going to take advantage of that stuff. I think that Indiana's offensive line gets overplayed a little bit because last year was at Ohio State. They had to go to a silent count, and if you look at the pressures that Ohio State got on Curtis Work so big last year, was that they knew the silent count. They knew when that ball was going to be snapped. And then we also learned later on what about Curtis Work? He had a torn ACL. He had no mobility. He wasn't able to move. They weren't able to get him out of the pocket. I think Fernando Mendoza is completely different. They're going to put him on the rollout. They're going to get him out of the pocket, play action, rollout, all this stuff. They're going to run Fernando Mendoza more so if Ohio State's defensive line starts, pinning their ears back too much and going after him. They're going to hit him with that QB draw, and Fernando Mendoza is going to get some first downs and really frustrate this Ohio State defense. And it's going to be a game in the fourth quarter. I don't know if it's going to be a mistake by Ohio State or a game-winning play or anything like that by Fernando Mendoza, but I have said this season, even though it was against some weaker competition, Indiana's played in the big moments at the end of the game where they need the game-winning drive. I think that's really going to help Indiana in this one. I don't know if Indiana beats Ohio State again if they meet in the playoffs, but I think for this one, I like Indiana's chances. I think the defensive line is going to come up huge. I think the linebackers are going to be huge, and I do think the safeties for Indiana are not talked about enough. Lewis Moore, Amari Farrell, these guys are excellent. They do a great job. Moore is one of the smartest safeties in all of college football, in my opinion. Always seems to be in the right spot, always seems to know what to do. I know they had the one miscommunication early on in the season where everybody was saying it was Pond's fault and everything. So they do. It's not like they're completely perfect, but I do think that Indiana gets underrated on defense. I think they're going to hold Ohio State to 21 points, and I think Indiana at some point in this game is going to get a special kind of score or set them up special with their offense for a score. And I don't think Kirk Cincinnati is going to settle for field goals. I think that was one of the Sherrone Moore's biggest detriments in that Michigan game was that he settled for field goals. He said, we're going to let Ohio State make mistakes, and we're going to capitalize on it. I don't think Cincinnati's going to have that same approach. I think he's going to go after him. I think he's going to be going for it on fourth down. I think you're going to see a lot of fourth downs on this one. And I also think that Cincinnati is going to be prepared for some of those slant and goes by Jeremiah Smith, right? They're going to have the safeties back there ready for those type of things. And overall, I think this is the best coaching staff Ohio State has seen. Ohio State's still going to be, top bye team in the playoffs and everything, even if they lose. But I think Indiana is going to really give them a challenge in this one, and they might just come out on top.
Bold pick.
I'm a man of my word, Zach. I said I wouldn't go away. We lost 12 viewers when I made that pick, but that's okay. I said I wouldn't go away from it, and so I'm a man of my word. I'll do it.
I just want to point out you're making the wrong pick against Ohio State like I did last week. To be fair to me last week, I would have picked Ohio State if Michigan hadn't beat us 4 times in a row. And I will say us because I have a personal stake in that rivalry. And we don't have to talk about it. I don't disagree with you. I think there's a sense where people are overplaying last year's game.
Yes.
But I think you can do that on both sides because do you remember who Ohio State lost in the lead up to that game?
To which game again?
Indiana, who they lost.
Oh,
personnel wise.
Why am I blanking on this?
Remington Award winner Seth McLaughlin.
Yep.
And that was the second big time lineman that went down for them, and they had to reshuffle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody thought they were fine after the Indiana game until they came out against Michigan. And then we realized, they're not fine. And so I agree with you. And I think it's true on both sides. Like Indiana had to go to silent count, but the offense did not look right in that Indiana game a year ago for Ohio State either. And I just have kind of thrown that out in my mind. I'm kind of preparing for playoff Ohio State from a year ago, but I think what you're saying, I think I can see how your game plan plays out. And I think that could happen. I just have a hard time seeing Ohio State on a fast track, only scoring 21.
I mean, it would take some missed field goals most likely, and it would most likely take, some fourth down stops. Because Ohio State's not going to go for 3-and-out, 3 straight drives or anything like that. Like that's not going to happen. But if Indiana can play some good situational football, maybe a little bit of that Iowa stuff with the situational football. Not to say Iowa would beat Ohio State. They're not going to. I'm just saying, Iowa's a very good situational football team, and if Indiana can do that, I think they can win it. I put out a poll, Zach, who wins this game, Ohio State, Indiana. 65% say Ohio State, 35% say Indiana. So we'll see if the chat is right there. Anything else on this game before we end it here?
No, I do think I know I picked a 3-score victory, but I think this will be an excellent game. Like I really do.
I can't wait. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Big Ten bowl game projections. Won't spend a ton of time on this, but Philip did suggest it, so I wanted to make sure and honor a guy who's been with us for a long, long time with Philip. So let's go through, and I'll kind of give you my thoughts, kind of some of the stuff other people are saying with where some Big Ten teams could land. It looks like USC most likely going to land in the Alamo Bowl and play a Big 12 team. Houston or BYU. Kalani Sitake sticking around at BYU could make that very interesting facing there. So USC facing a team out west there could be interesting. Iowa and either the Las Vegas Bowl against Utah, or they could go to the ReliaQuest Bowl against Tennessee. I think if I'm an Iowa fan, I'm rooting for that Utah matchup over the Tennessee matchup personally. What do you think, Zach?
I kind of want to see Iowa smash Tennessee.
I mean, I want to see that, but I think Iowa probably has a better chance of beating Utah, or no? You disagree?
I mean, I think Iowa's better on the lines.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I think maybe significantly better on the lines.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're better for sure. All right, cool. Well, either one, going to be an interesting one to see. Washington in the Holiday Bowl against Pitt, or in the Sun Bowl against SMU. If at any point in time you have a comment, just stop me. And
Washington just wants to be as close to home as possible on that.
Yeah.
So Holiday Bowl. Yeah. Holiday Bowl.
Illinois, they have probably the most options, it looks like, with different teams they could face and different bowls they could go to with how they finished in the Big Ten. So it looks like they could go to the ReliaQuest Bowl and face Tennessee. They could go to the Las Vegas Bowl and face Utah. So kind of what we were talking about with Iowa there. Or they could go to the ReliaQuest Bowl and face Vanderbilt.
I want Vandy.
Yeah, I want to see Vanderbilt versus Illinois.
I want to see Brett Bielema mess with Clark Lee.
Oh, that'd be so funny.
Like he did Shane Beamer last year.
If Clark Lee turns into Shane Beamer from last year, that'd be
awesome.
Then
he gets fired.
Fucking fired.
I know. I'm kidding.
Zach wants to start the Fire SEC Coaches podcast now.
I think that would be a very entertaining podcast.
Yeah, I think it would. Maybe too. I'd be for it. You should start it.
Yeah. I do think that would be a hard matchup, though. Vandy's offense with the way Illinois' defense has been, I think it'd be a fun game. I don't know if I like Illinois' chances in that game.
Well, Illinois, I mean, Vandy's defense isn't much either, so Illinois would score on them.
Yeah.
So, I did not get your thoughts on USC. Did you have any thoughts on USC with the Alamo Bowl versus Houston or BYU?
I think if they get BYU, that would be, I think, kind of a prove it game for USC. Like it could really help their cause in terms of like getting national respect, not like real like elite status, but I think as they're trying to climb into that, I think getting BYU and winning that game could really matter.
I'm with Fight on Natties here. I want to see USC against another SEC team. 3-0 versus the SEC the past 2 years. Would love to see it. All right, Minnesota most likely facing an ACC team in the Pinstripe Bowl. Georgia Tech, Duke, or Pitt. Any of those three you would like to see Minnesota face?
I think whoever they get, Minnesota is like, they're not as good as they were a year ago. So I remember last year, their bowl game. I think they played UNC, and I'm like, oh, that's the easiest one to pick. They're absolutely going to win. I just don't know what to expect from them, because I'm like, they beat Nebraska 24-6, but like they struggled against other teams, and I don't know, like they're 7-5, but I would not be shocked if any of those ACC teams pulled off what I think would probably be an upset. Georgia Tech would be a tough matchup, I think, for them.
I don't think Georgia Tech or Pitt would be an upset. I think those two teams would probably be favored over Minnesota.
Yeah.
The last one I'd want to see there is Pitt with Mason Heichel. And their passing attack versus Minnesota. I'd love to see Duke versus Minnesota. Give Drake Lindsay a chance there. The Duke matchup that we saw against Illinois, kind of compare and contrast early on in the season. What did Duke look like? Looking like this one. Yeah.
I think that would be a better pick.
Yeah. Nebraska is probably going to be in the Music City Bowl against either LSU or Missouri.
I mean, Nebraska may want to self-select out at this point. Although if it's against
Emmett
LSU,
Johnson, one more time. I need one more Emmett Johnson before he goes to the NFL. I think he's probably going to the NFL.
Do you think he's going to play?
I hope he does. I mean, I am not ready for Emmett Johnson to be out of my life yet, Zach.
Dude, he's good. He's so good. I think I'd prefer Missouri, because I think they have the weaker defense.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, Missouri, both LSU and Missouri have quarterback issues, because Van Buren is not it, replacing Nussmeier and his injury. But Missouri also has a backup. And
Bo Prabula's back.
Is he?
Yeah, he was back for that Oklahoma game.
Okay, no, I want LSU for them.
Yeah. Okay. Northwestern. This is interesting. So we could do Northwestern and then Penn State, because those are the two right there. Northwestern is either going to be in the Guaranteed Rates Bowl against Cincinnati, most likely, or in the Game Above Sports Bowl against the MAC squad, most likely Western Michigan. And Penn State is the other one there, as they are most likely going to be in one of those two bowls. If they're in the Game Above Sports Bowl, they'll face the MAC opponent. Western Michigan, maybe Ohio could be in there as well. And then the Rate Bowl is the one where they could face a Big 12 team, most likely Cincinnati, but you could also possibly see TCU in there as well. And then deep one, which we all need this in our lives, Zach. We need to see Penn State in the Pinstripe Bowl against Pitt. That's what. That's
really the one that's what we need. And I think Penn State would smoke Pitt. If everybody plays,
I just need the Pitt and Penn State, fans on Twitter again going after each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
that'd be such a great game.
Yeah.
Give the people what they want.
You might have civil war there in Pennsylvania. You might have to, lock
they
down.
They don't really care about Pitt where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
It's the Pitt. Yeah.
Areas,
yeah. Remember, I live near the Amish. They don't care about the Pitt Panthers.
That's true. You're not taking the crank TV over to the Amish to watch the Pitt games together. Don't worry, guys. I got it. All right. So that would be interesting. It's probably going to be one of those two in there. I no offense to Northwestern, but I would rather see Penn State against a Big 12 team or something like that. Yeah. Only if all their guys play, though. I mean, they're going to have a lot of guys off to the NFL, so some of them might not play, but also some of them could play if it's like we're doing this for Terry Smith type of thing. Yeah. And if they do that, I want to see them against the Cincinnati or TCU. So, yeah. All right. And then last one, Zach. We could do like playoffs, but that's like Rose Bowl for whoever's the Big Ten winner, most likely. But all right. Michigan probably going to the Citrus Bowl. All right. I heard that on ESPN when I was watching it one time. They were talking about how they had some intel that the Citrus Bowl was going to go after Michigan, and then they'll probably play either Texas or Vanderbilt. Who would you rather see Michigan face, Texas or Vanderbilt?
I don't know. Probably Texas.
I think Texas. Yeah. I'd rather have Texas.
Yeah. Why do you want Texas?
I want Texas because rematch of last year. And also, I said it in the during the season, I think Michigan is the same, if not better, than Texas.
Even after what we saw this past Saturday?
Yeah. It's the Ohio State Michigan game. You kind of got to throw it out a little bit. And I said that with Ohio State too. I said, how much can we really take from this game? So I'm being consistent here with both of them.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think I'd rather see Texas, but Vanderbilt would be fun too. I mean, have this Michigan defensive line, which is admittedly not as good as it's been in years past, but have them go up against Diego Pavia. That'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That would be.
All right. Any other thoughts on bowls or anything like that?
Nope. No, I think it'll be fun to see it all laid out next week.
Yep. I think
Even
Sunday is when it's all released.
Yeah, even if we're all angsty about the playoffs.
Yes, should be fun. All right, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for coming in, listening to the Big Ten Huddle, listening to me and Zach chop it up, and we appreciate you being here in the comments. Please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff before you get out of here. Zach, do you have any final thoughts before we leave?
Justice for Notre Dame, Miami, and everybody else who's getting screwed over by the CFP.
Oh, well, justice for Miami over Notre Dame is what you mean.
Yeah, well, justice for Miami, justice for Notre Dame, because like the way they've been strung along just to get dropped is
okay.
stinks.
Gotcha.
Justice but especially justice for Miami. Like,
yeah, gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying. Notre Dame getting jumped by Alabama, that wasn't right. Okay, I see what you're saying. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.